I'm Heidi Rader here with the University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension. I'm here in Petersburg, Alaska at the 2023 Southeast Alaska Farmers Summit. And I'm here with Joe Orsi with Orsi Organics. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about his farm in Juneau, Alaska. So Joe, tell us a little bit about your farm and what you grow and what you sell and maybe how you got into it.
Okay, Heidi, thanks for the interview. I started growing about 12 years ago commercially, and it was after the Juneau started their first annual farmers market, and we just didn't have a business license or anything. We just brought a bunch of garlic down, and my wife and I sold out, and it's like, I think we can make some money doing this. So that's what kind of initiated the initial commercial enterprise, and then about 6 years later, I retired from my job at NOAA after 35 years, and then decided, well, I'll just up the ante a little more. So I invested in a high tunnel, went through the NRCS program, and got some compensation for that, and that allowed me to grow additional crops like cucumbers, zucchini, and tomatoes, more reliably. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. And now I'm growing about 2,500 pounds of produce every year that I mainly sell, and we keep some for personal use and share with others, the community.
That's great. And let's see, what do you grow the most of?
Probably numerically, did about 900 pounds of rhubarb this year sold. Garlic, did 3,000 garlic, and maybe that's 200-300 pounds of bulbs. And carrots, maybe 400 pounds, potatoes, almost that much, and then shallots and zooks and cukes in the high tunnel. And the zucchini are probably my favorite to grow in the high tunnel because it's just like magic watching those things appear every day or every other day. Just nice, perfect size zucchini.
Awesome. And where are you selling your produce?
Okay, Heidi, I'm selling at several different places, mainly 4. There's a few brick and mortar places that we make deliveries to in Juneau, and there's the Salt and Soil online marketplace where you can advertise your produce online, customers select it, and then you compile an order after the cycle closes. And then I have a good arrangement where I'm producing so much that I have the person running the program comes out to my farm, and I just deliver right to that person, and they just take it to their office. And then I also have a Malga distillery. They come out for the rhubarb and raspberries, and they'll come up right to the farm too and pick up the product. And I have a cool box in my garage, so I can chill everything down to like 35 degrees in 20 minutes, just a room about 8 by 10 by 10, and that really helps, enables me to stockpile things. And I have a friend that's 10 years older than me that helps me out there for nothing. He's really great, and we love to just work as hard as we can, but the older we get, the harder it is to work, be super productive. So we try to get like maybe 100, 150 pounds of rhubarb at a time, clean it in the wash station, get it in the tractor, move it down to the cool bot, package it, and compile it, and then we'll do the same thing the next day so we don't burn ourselves out.
Wow, that's great. What are some of your favorite varieties that you're growing?
For zucchini, I use parthenocarpic varieties, the ones that will set fruit without fertilization. And the 3 that I use there are Cavili, which is kind of a lime-colored one that's hard to find now. Easy Pick Gold, which is a yellow one you can get at Territorial, and then Parthenon, which is a green one, which I think I most recently got at Johnny's. And for garlic, I've grown like 45 varieties over the last 15 years, and I've narrowed it down to 4 varieties I like the best: Chestnut Red, Scam, Purple Glazer, and I call it Purple Striped Giant. Those are the 4 varieties I've gravitated to, and then I save my own seed every year, so I'm planting the best of the best every year, and it seems to do really well. And I sell both for seed and culinary for the garlic, and I plant it with using mainly outside with 3-foot wide rows with IRT plastic mulch, which is slit every 12 inches. And then I go 3-2, 3-2 all the way down the row. And we pretty much have to do that here in Southeast Alaska to get good, reliable production. That's what I found.
To keep the rain off and heat up the
Both.
soil,
Yeah,
keep the weeds down too?
Yeah, the IRT, it'll transmit the infrared rays, but it will block the photosynthetic rays. So you won't get weed growth underneath it, but you'll get the heat is what you typically need.
What about for some of your other crops? What are your favorite varieties for those?
Let's see, shallots. I guess the trick with shallots, at least in Southeast Alaska, is to plant just the small starts like you do with onion sets, the little, whatever you call them, the startlings or whatever. The
Sets.
The sets, not the bulbs, but the actual thin, like onion
Plants.
sets. Plants, yeah. From Dixondale Farms, they sell just a general shallot, and if you plant it in the spring, it's much better than planting bulbs in the fall like you do with garlic, because what happens with shallots, at least at our latitude 58, is that they tend to throw a lot of scapes up, which you don't want with garlic and shallots, and the scape draws so much away from the bulb that it just makes it pretty much worthless. So I like to plant the shallots in the spring as little plants, because that helps with the not producing any scapes.
Sure. That's
But let's see,
great.
what other varieties? Potatoes, I like. I kind of gravitated more to the russet variety, like Gold Rush, because it tends to be more resistant to scab. We have a big scab problem here in Southeast Alaska. And then apples, I mean, I've tried 60 some odd varieties of apples, top crick a lot of my mother trees, and I started that in the 90s.
Wow.
And I kind of am not real excited about apples, because again, we have so much temperate rainforest, we have so much humidity and disease problem with apple scab and even bugs. So I basically, sell maybe a few hundred pounds, but I have people that like to come over and pick, so I just let them pick whatever they want, and I'll put a tarp underneath the tree and we'll shake it really good and get everything out of there. So we don't have any problem with bears, which is a huge problem here in Southeast. So have to run electric fence all the way around the perimeter of the farm for different heights for the wire. One for porcupine, one for deer, and one for bear. Like that, to just try to keep the animals away from things. And of course, pay close attention to. I don't use any fish scraps or anything in my garden. I don't like the idea of drawing things in, because it's happened to so many people I know. When I kept bees, I kept them on a platform on a accessible place on my roof, just so it wouldn't draw the bears in.
Do you think, are bears one of your biggest challenges, or the rain, or what is your biggest challenge?
Just the season. We just don't have a very long season, and we don't have falls here in Southeast Alaska like they are in other places, like up in Anchorage area, and even up in Haines they have a really nice fall. We don't have a lot of heat come the middle end of August, and our Septembers are usually not real good. That's why apples do not really do good here in my area, and it makes it really challenging for crops like tomatoes in the high tunnel. I've pretty much stopped growing them, because I end up with a lot of green tomatoes, and they don't ripen and have some disease problems because of the high humidity, which it's very hard to control in a high tunnel, because you don't have a dehumidifier, and you're pulling outside air across, and if it's 80% humidity outside, it's going to be 80% humidity in your high tunnel, which you want ideally. I think you want like 60% in a greenhouse to minimize the mold.
So what do you think are some of the biggest opportunities for growing in Southeast?
As far as selling crops, or is just to satisfaction?
Or home gardeners, or you see any up and coming type of crops, or what are you excited to try in the future, or are you sticking with what works at this point?
I think I'm just sticking with what I know works. I mean, carrots are always a safe bet, because it's we have a cool climate here, so that does benefit some the carrots, so root crops. So I think you can't go wrong with carrots, as long as you pay close attention to the fact that you have to thin them every few inches, and you have to realize that carrot seed is one of those seeds that needs to be really warm to germinate. So you need to pay attention to the time you plant, so it's not too cool, or they'll take weeks and weeks to germinate.
Do you have a favorite carrot variety?
Yeah, absolutely. Merida is the one that I favor. Territorial Seed sells that, and I did a carrot trial during COVID for the community garden. I grew 10 different varieties, and then
cool.
Chipped them, put them in little cups, numbered them, randomly numbered them, and took them out to the community garden, and people sampled them, and family sampled, and I tabulated which one was the favorite, which one was the worst, and Merida was the overall winner.
Nice. Do you have a favorite tool that you use in your farm? Pretty low
pretty low tech.
mechanization.
Yeah, I have a tractor with implements. Initially prepping the site, I used that extensively, but I'm no-till right now, and I rotate my crop families from year to year in the beds. And my typical rotation is let's say I start with potatoes, pre-sprout them inside, plant them out there in the middle of April, and then get them going and do the harvest of the tops in July, late July, throw a tarp over them. So that tells the potato I'm dead, and the skins start to thicken and they set, so they won't slough off. And then do the harvesting after a couple weeks, and then that bed gets turned into garlic, which gets planted around the fall equinox, around September 21st is when I do it. And then after the garlic gets planted, then I bring in over 2,000 pounds of seaweed,
wow.
Rockweed that's just drifted on a tide line, and distribute that over the beds, usually around the end of October. I'll initially set it out along the perimeter of my farm area, and then let the rain wash it away. We get a lot of rain in the fall here. And then come October, late October, when things are starting to get pretty cold around here, put about 2 or 4 inches of seaweed over all the beds, and then throw a tarp over, an opaque tarp over everything, and then anchor that down, and then it's nighty-night till the following spring, and usually around early April, the tarp comes off, the seaweed gets moved, and usually by that time the garlic is popping up, and it's a 300-day crop, so it requires a lot of attention throughout the growing season after that. Then the remay goes over that after the little sprouts are help through the holes if they're not making it, and the seaweed's not still attached to the garlic, because that can kind of strangle it if it dries, like the rockweed will. So and then I do a foliar spray of fish emulsions,
wow.
Seaweed spray, and the side dressing of organic and fertilizers like
Sounds delicious.
fish.
Is the remay to increase the heat, or
Yeah.
to protect them from pests, or?
Mainly to increase the heat. I use Agribon. I don't use remay, and the reason I like Agribon is because it's got an embossing down the length of it. So you when you unravel it, you know exactly how to orient it in your bed. And I put that on everything basically. The garlic, and then I also, when the carrots come up, it goes on that. In the high tunnel, even I use it from my starts.
And all season long?
Just until the things get going.
Okay.
So probably maybe four weeks or something like that.
And then in the fall again too, or?
No, well, what I'll do is, after I pull the garlic out, then I'll sow the cover crop. Okay, so gently pull all the plastic mulch off the rows, and then that gets recycled. I can usually use that plastic, even though it's 1 mil thick. I can usually get 4 seasons out of it before it has to be discarded.
That's great.
So wash the plastic mulch row covers, and then sow the cover crop, which is nitrogen fixing and just vegetative stuff like buckwheat, field peas, and hairy vetch. Sow that over those beds of garlic with the rows off of it, and then wet that down really good, and then put the Agribon over that.
Wow.
And that'll get it germinating really quick. And then once it starts lifting it, then I can pull it off and just let that grow all the way up, and then come late October or whatever, when I'm doing the garlic seaweeding, I can go ahead and throw a tarp over all of that and just let that rot down. So
Wow.
you say tools, I guess I'm using my hands to basically till the soil to pull the potatoes out. So that's really the only disturbance I'm doing on the rows. And then I'll sometimes intersperse carrots, there is,
Wow.
is another alternate crop.
In the with the cover crop, or
In
instead
the
of
rotation,
the cover crop?
in the
Okay.
rotation, yeah. But always
And you talked about washing the Agribon and the plastic mulch.
just the plastic mulch, not the Agribon.
And you just spray it down, or how do you wash it?
In the plastic mulch, we just submerge it in like a big tub and just let that sit for a while, and then you can usually pull it out and then try to dry it. If there's a dry day in Southeast thing, we kind of string it all over the yard and let that dry, and then just put it in like a trash can and just
Wow.
yeah.
Hot water and soap?
No,
Just water?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm on city water, so I've got pretty clean water to use.
Okay, great. So do you have any advice for somebody starting out in this type of farm or small garden?
I think boxes are what most people start off with for their growing. I'm not using any boxes at all. It's all row crops and with the IRT plastic mulch. So I guess I would, if you're starting out small, just do a box. And carrots are pretty a good bet. And if your soil is new and it's clean, potatoes are obviously really good. Peas are real popular in Southeast. Ideally, you'd have 3 different boxes, that you can rotate across with your crops, so you're not doing the same crop family from year to year in the box, if that makes sense.
And why do you choose not to use boxes?
I've used them, and our climate is such that they only last like 12 years, and then they start falling apart. And you usually get rough cut lumber, which isn't cheap now. It used to be fairly cheaper. So it's just the cost of doing that. If I've got, I don't know, 100 and how many rows? My rows are typically 16 feet long, and I think I've got maybe 150 of those.
Oh, wow.
So it would be pretty cost prohibitive to do that.
Do you have to use any type of irrigation?
For like getting some things started, like the cover crop, if it's dry, I'll do some aerial sprinkling. In the high tunnel, obviously you need to irrigate because there is no water getting in there. So I use a drip irrigation system there with just a tape with that's got perfed every foot. I have 6 50-foot rows, and then on each row there's 2 tapes that run along the row about 12 inches apart, and then that's how I do the irrigation in the high tunnel.
Yeah, I was going to say I find it a bit easier to irrigate with drip irrigation in the ground, and then also if you do end up rototilling, that's an
Like I said, I
advantage.
don't do any rototilling at all.
Well,
So
that's good. Well, very nice. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your farm?
no, it's just I'll send you a picture. It's great to have the family participate when they want to, and it's great to have a friend that likes to do it, and to be able to just share with the community, and just that time when everything gets fully green in like July, and you just sit back and you look at it, and the birds are singing, and it's just a wonderful thing. You just say, "Thank you, Lord, for all this this beauty." It's just it's almost a shame to do any cutting on it, but yeah, it's very fulfilling to do it, and it's just challenging in our environment to grow. But it's fulfilling, and like I said before, it's nice to be able to pay the property taxes with the revenue from the farm. And it seems like people are really appreciative of things that are grown locally, and try to keep the circle. Like I was the first customer for our commercial composter in Juneau several years ago.
Oh, wow.
And now I buy 3 pickup truck loads from her every year. So that compost really makes a big difference in productivity in your soil. So just developing your soil, use organic amendments, natural, locally sourced material that you can, and hopefully there'll be lots of worms and everything will be happy.
Sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your farm and the information with us.
Okay, thanks, Heidi.